Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Nduma, and I'm going to be talking about tips and tricks in maximizing your interviews during the ERAS application cycle. Stick around and enjoy it. Tips and tricks to maximize the number of interviews you get during the ERAS application cycle. I divided this into 5 different topics: letters of recommendation, documenting clinical experience, clinical research, researching programs, and networking. Now, letters of recommendations. You must have American clinical experience in the academic year prior to the year you're applying for residency. What do I mean by that? The current cycle is the 2024 March cycle. And so for the 2023-2024 academic year, you want to have a letter within this year. So if you have a letter from 2022-2023 academic year or from 2020 to 2021, your chances of matching into residency are less. Programs are looking for people who have recent experience because it shows that you're up to date with the most recent clinical guidelines. And so that is very important. A lot of people miss that. So have a recent clinical experience. You're going to outline this clinical experience in your resume, in your application, and then your letter writers are also going to outline this experience in your letters of recommendation. And so it's very important. The second thing I want to talk about is communicating with your letter writers. It's very important that you get an American clinical experience if you can. I'm directing this to those who are in the United States. Pretty easy. There are a lot of people offering services to give you a letter of recommendation nowadays in America. There are a lot of them out there. If you're outside America, you can do tele rotations. That has become very popular too. But there is one thing: when you're going to, communicate with someone who is going to write a letter for you, before you start the clinical experience, you're going to outline all the things that you want your letter writer to include in your personal statement. You outline it, you make it clear that you're here to get a letter of recommendation, not just a generic letter, but a letter that is going to go all out. And these are the things that I want highlighted in my experience. And then you hand all the things you want to this person, and then both of you communicate how you can work towards these things so that at the end of the day, you have all the things that you want outlined in your letter. You don't just go blindly. I see a lot of people, just go and communicate. I need a letter of recommendation, and then you don't say anything to these letter writers. You just follow them around their practice, and then at the end of the day, they're gonna write a generic letter and put it out for you, and you don't have any say, and you don't even know what is in the letter. That's a very wrong approach. Approach your letter writers. Let them know exactly what you want. Let them know exactly what you want written in your application. You discuss with them and give them all these things, and then they're going to tell you what you're going to do during your clinical experience for them to be comfortable putting all those things in your letter, and then you both work together, and at the end of the day or every week you get a feedback onto the end of your program, so that by the time you leave, you have a clear picture of what is going to be writing, what they're going to be writing, or what is going to be written in your letters of recommendation. So that's very important. A lot of people miss that. My personal experience with my letters: I had 2 letters of recommendations from my home residency, my home medical school. So I got a letter of recommendation from my medical school clerkship director, and he went all out for me. And I mean, I had a good time during medical school, and I knew how to approach these people. Then I had clinical experience back at home, working as a we call medical officer in America or in India or in most British colonies. We call medical officer. It's a primary care physician. So I worked as a primary care physician for a couple of years before coming to the United States. And so I outlined that experience as well. And the person I worked underneath, usually as a medical officer, you have a supervising physician in most practices, especially if you work with like the government. And so I had, an attending physician, a consultant physician that I worked with back in Nigeria. And I reached out to that person, and I had very good relationship, and he respected me so much, and he knew I was really hardworking, and he went all out for me in that letter. So I had a very good letter that went all out for me. I could kind of tell what my medical school clerkship director wrote in my letter, and I could clearly tell what my 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 boss, the consultant I work with as a medical officer, wrote in my letters. And then the letters of recommendations that I had here in the United States too, um, same thing. I spoke with these people that I did my experience with. I outlined all the things that I needed written in my letters, And then we went through it, and then they accepted that they're going to give me the opportunity to do clinical experience, and they're going to walk me through all those things that I'd written that I wanted: outline, punctuality, dedication to work, um, you know, uh, clinical research interest, and all of that. And throughout my experiences, we marked those things. I had feedback everywhere, and by the time I left, I knew exactly what was going to be written in my letters of recommendation. So all four of them, I was very comfortable with them. And then, my personal statement, because I was very comfortable with what was written in my letters, I knew what to write in my personal statement, concerning that, and I knew how to, arrange my application, and so that all added up, and then I can tell one consistent story. That's how you should approach this, and I think that's the best way where you can get the best outcomes. Now, documenting clinical experience. I had mentioned this in one of my earlier videos. Um, the first time that was actually the second time I applied for residency. First time I didn't get any interview. Second time I had one interview, and during that time, um, I got during the interview I got asked about what is a medical officer, and that's when I realized that there are some terminologies that we use and that is common to the environment where we came from that are not understandable in this community. We want to integrate in this community, and so we want to make uh, our applications look like someone from this community, and so it makes our life easier. And so the last time I was applying for residency, I changed from um, medical officer to primary care physician. I was in the outpatient setting, so I was able to outline all the things that I did as an outpatient, and how these things can affect my career, trying to become an internal medicine resident, what I learned, and I stated my job description and what I learned from that, stated my job description, and then how and what I'm looking forward to learning here in the United States to become what I am. So you have to document like that. And then in the recent eras, I think this year everything has changed, because this year you only have to put 10 experiences, 10 clinical research experiences, 10 um, American experience, everything from your work experience to your clinical research experience to your research, everything is just 10 spaces that you have to fill all these things into. So you have to be very tactical. And if you're confused about how to fill this, reach out and we're gonna help you, look through that and make sure we take all your experiences and maximize them into that space. I would have had I was lucky that at the time when I applied for residency, we were able to fill out anything in those spots. I had so many experiences. I worked back at home as a primary care physician, and then I came to the United States. I worked some non-clinical jobs, from geographic information system analyst to clinical research coordinator to medical information specialist to clinical research regulatory specialist, and then I marched into residency working as a clinical research regulatory specialist. And so I did a lot of things. I even worked as a mobile phlebotomist at a point when I had to pay bills. And so it was, that time was, having bills paid, but also having experiences that I think, accumulate together to make me a good candidate, someone who has had experiences practicing back at home, and then having all these ancillary clinical experiences and how to make all these things work for you. Having understanding of corporate America, working as a geographic information system analyst, which is purely a non-medical thing that I did. And so, I mean, putting all that together in one resume, and I know a lot of us applying for residency, especially those of us in the United States, have this dilemma. And so, if it's just 10 positions and you're having difficulty filling that out, reach out and we'll see how we can help you with that. The other one is clinical research, type of clinical research and how to handle it. So, personally, when I was applying for residency, I got confused, clinical research and then clinical research experience and then, publications. Now, those are two separate things, and sometimes you get them confused. Now, clinical research experience, I worked as a clinical research coordinator. I also worked as a clinical research regulatory specialist. Those are actually job experiences because I did them as a job. I was getting paid when I did that. Those were clinical, those were, so I put those as clinical research experiences, but they were also, job experiences. So I think errors has changed now. All of that is just going to go under those 10 positions. So you highlight them. I think it makes it easier. And this is different. When I was applying, I had 3 publications. The last time I applied for residency, I had 3 publications at the time. And so those are going to go under my publications. And that is just doing literature reviews and adding things up, making conclusions, and then going into different journals and having those um, research manuscripts published. That is actually different from you actually working as a clinical research coordinator. Both of them are good, and if you have both experiences, you can leverage them for your own benefit to the residency or specialty program that you're applying to. So I just wanted to make that distinction. Clinical research, there are a lot of jobs now in clinical research, and then you don't have to do a clinical research job in order to get papers published. You can sit in your room by yourself and publish multiple papers. If you don't know how to do it, you can reach out and other folks can help you do publications. I'm also actually currently working on putting a group of people together to work on some publications. If you are interested in that, I think I had 1 or 2 people reach out to me talking about they are interested in having publications. I think you can reach out to me and we can work on that. I can put a group together of people and set you up, give you ground rules, and then you all work on an article and publish it and increase your academic profile. Then the last thing I want to talk about is consistency and network. I think I've already hinted to consistency earlier in this application. As much as possible, if you are smart enough, you're going to have an idea of what is written in your letters of recommendation. And then you can mirror that in your personal statement, in your application, and then even when you talk during your interview. Everything should be consistent. If the letters of recommendations are consistently saying that, hey, you're a very punctual person, you're dedicated to your job, you love patient care, and you are a go-getter, and then your personal statement is saying the exact same thing, and then your letters of recommendations, your application is actually outlining all of that from your work experiences, and then you are bringing out that same information in your interviews. Of course they're going to believe it, because if 4 people write you a letter and these 4 folks say that you are punctual, you are consistent, you love patient care, you're actually compassionate about your patients, and and about the colleagues you work with at work, and then your personal statement says that, and then your application says that, and then you go and you bring that same thing during your interview, of course it's going to be believable, as opposed to your letters are saying something else, your personal statement or your application is saying something else, then you go for the interview and you're saying something else. It's disjointed, and that's something a lot of people don't think it through. Your application should be consistent. When consistency is seen in your application, it's believable, and those are the people. It's just natural that anyone will want to take you more seriously, as opposed to different documents saying different things, and then you are bringing out a different impression during the interview. So have that at the back of your mind. And then the last thing I want to talk about is networking. This is, to me, like 60 to 70% of the residency, especially for older graduates, has to do with networking. 60 to 70%, I can say that categorically. Networking has to do with reaching out to people in different programs. Personally, I reached out to a lot of residents in different programs. LinkedIn is a very powerful source. I reached out to thousands of people in different programs. I was asking questions about those programs throughout the cycle. When I did match in March, April, I started reaching out to different residents, PGY2s, PGY3s, incoming PGY1. And then July, August, I intensified. I was talking to residents from different programs. They were giving me perspective about their programs. They were giving me things like cutoff, cutoff of their various programs that they are aware of. If there's a cutoff, if there, score cutoff, if there's year of graduation cutoff, the culture of the program. And so by the time I was applying, I kind of had an idea of certain things about certain programs. So I reached out to residents, and then I reached out to program directors too, just to network. And I have a format that I write my letters. I type this format typically, and then I send it out to program directors and then I copy program coordinators. And half the time I get I get responses, answering my question. I don't just ask a broad question. I actually ask something that is curious, that's you want to respond to. I don't just say a broad thing. Half of the time, if you just write a broad thing without specifically asking any question, it's just going to be ignored. You have to ask specific questions, and someone reading that email knows that you're actually thinking, deeply about what you're asking about, and that's something where the information is not found anywhere else, and so they're going to respond to you, and then you can use that as a connect to open communications with them, talk about where you are and what you're looking for, and then some people actually open up for me. I got one interview just like that. I reached out to a program director, and we communicated. We exchanged like 4 or 5 emails back and forth. And then, during the application cycle, when errors open, I sent my application in September. I think first week of October. That same week, everything opened to programs on Thursday, and by Tuesday, by the weekend of Sunday, usually I like to, when I'm emailing programs, I like to send out the emails late Sunday night, or very early 6:30 a.m. on Monday morning. And my thought process is, when they wake up, once they open their email, my email should be the first email on the top of their list, and they have to look at it. And usually I get a response. That work, it was just a thing I thought through. I didn't really get that from anyone. Personal experience. Working as a clinical research coordinator, clinical research regulatory specialist, I receive 50, 60 emails in a day. And usually when I come in on Monday morning, the first email in my box is usually the email I respond to. And so I just thought, that's probably the same way with program directors who probably receive 200, 300 emails on a daily basis. And so the first email on the top of the list is the one they're just going to respond to first. And that worked for me half the time. And so you email these people and you ask them questions. We went back and forth. September, I'm sending my applications open to cycles. I just went back to the email chain we had and sent him an email and said, hey, I finally sent him my application to your program. I look forward to respond. The next day, I got an interview. And so it worked. It worked for me. And, through networking, I have had the opportunity to go places. Maybe I'll create another video where I'm going to talk just about networking and how to approach people and how to use social media and other platforms to network and meet other residents and other programs. You communicate with people to a point where they start rooting for you. And that brings me to the end of this video. Please like, share, subscribe, and thank you so much.